Welcome once again to the Trailer Fitters Toolbox on YouTube. We're dedicated to Land Rover owners. In this tutorial, video, mini-series if you like, we're going to be covering inspecting a project. It might look like a bit of an old shed to some people.
What?
You know as well as I do that these vehicles can be restored to their former glory. In this series we're also going to be looking at Mario's project and see what actually is possible with a little bit of time and investment. We haven't picked the worst possible scenario, however this vehicle here has its issues. So we're going to have a look at these and do an inspection, and I'll show you what to look for, what information to get, and then we can make a decision whether this is worth purchasing or not. Now in my eyes I've already inspected it, but I'd like you to watch along and see. Okay, so it's time to close the door, pull the curtains, get yourself a coffee, and we'll get on with it. Okay, so you found your exciting project on eBay and you're already down on site. You're going to actually need some tools. I've got a tyre lever here. It's quite important. This will help you check bearings and kingpin play. I've also got a flask for obvious reasons. And a folder with a pen. Unless you've got an extremely good memory, you're going to need to write a list of the faults that you find. You can then go home and assess whether it's worth it. I've got myself a little inspection torch here, and I've also got myself a pair of gloves. This pair of gloves, they're very good and they protect my fingers. They've also got a little bit of thermal protection, and they've got good grip. They're called Gorilla Grip, and they do the job quite well. You'll also need a jack. I brought along a bottle jack, however I was kind enough that somebody would lend me a trolley jack, so we're alright. Being as it's quite a wet place, I've got a crawler board and my overalls, as well as a high-vis jacket just to keep me protected. You're going to also need a wire brush, a rag and a mirror. The mirror, especially if you've got an old vehicle, the transfer box, you're going to have to jiggle this so you can find the number on the box. You're also going to need to be awake when you're looking at the vehicle. You're going to need your body, also the parts in it, eyes, nose and ears especially. Now if you have body sense, you know you can feel a vehicle if something's right or not, especially with steering, clutch and brakes. First appearance always counts when you first look at a vehicle, and it's always better to be objective about looking at something rather than being subjective. Now for me, it's iconic. It has a Land Rover badge on it, and there's always potential, especially when it comes to some sort of historic value. We can also get blinded by love.
Yeah.
Some people go for the image and the quality, however I always look at the potential, especially the Defender range. This is the way Land Rover always lends itself. First information you should get is registration number, VIN number, engine number and a chassis number if it actually exists on the chassis. I go for the gearbox and transfer box numbers as well. The reasons are obvious for this, and you need to check against the documents to see whether the vehicle's bona fide or not. Now the VIN number will be here on the brake master cylinder under the bonnet. Now this will have the right number that you'll need on the registration document. You need to check that. Usually it's a Saldi hack something or another, and this will give you some sort of history if you check into it. The VIN number is also stamped on a chassis in here where the arrow is pointing, and it'd be better to show you on this diagram exactly where it is. The workshop manual will give you a description of exactly what the Vin Plate does, tell you where the VIN numbers are and the maximum weights including your axle weights. All vehicles have a VIN number, and it will also not only be a serial number of the actual vehicle itself, but it will give a description of where the vehicle was made and what type it is. In this case it's quite important we find out what type of vehicle it is, what body it has and what type of engine, and the VIN number will show you this. First three digits are easy. S is Europe, A is United Kingdom, and L is Land Rover. The LD tells us that this is a 110 Defender. The H is showing us the wheelbase is 110 inch. The A is telling us it's basic, hardtop van commercial. And the C is telling us it's a 2.5 litre inline 4-cylinder diesel. The curiosity here is the gearbox type, which on the Vin Plate will say number 1. You'll see it's Series 3 4-speed or LT95 or a 5-speed auto, which isn't correct. It should actually be number 7, which is an LT77 5-speed and a right-hand drive. The next digit we have is an A, which says it's all models except for the B, C, D, etc. The last digit we're going to look at is A, which says it was built in Solihull in the UK. Okay, so we have a little bit of a mystery here about the gearbox type, however this is something to investigate. So the Vin Plate isn't just for the vehicle information, it also has the weights and axle numbers on it. And if we look at this one here, the plate, we're looking at the maximum laden weight for the vehicle without a trailer, and then the maximum train weight with a trailer, obviously. 1 and 2 are the maximum axle weights for the front and rear axle. Engine number as well, which is cited just here, and you'll need a rag to clean it off. That's why I told you need a rag and a wire brush. Okay, so the engine number is clearly seen. Gearbox number, which I go for, to give me an idea exactly what it is, and this is a D, an LT77, that's a 50A D suffix. Looking at the transfer box, you have 2 places for a number. This one happens to be out of a Discovery or Range Rover. It could be stamped on this side of the transfer box, which makes it awkward to get at. In this case, it happens to be on the side. It's an older box, and I'm using the mirror. As I said, you need a mirror to check the numbers, so you can just about read that. With the magic of video, I've turned it round. 12D 75A. It's worth noting all these details down so you have a record of exactly what you've got. You can then research this to see exactly what the vehicle has hidden within its history. Just before you dash off to check your VIN numbers on your vehicles, part 2 will be covering corrosion and the possible faults that we can find with older Land Rovers, so stay tuned.